welcome to Beyond the Sum of Our Parts. We're so glad you're joining us for our second episode. We are 6 people from different walks of life coming together to lean in and have uncomfortable conversations with open minds and open hearts. On the way, we will uncover our own perspectives and the perspectives of others as we embrace one common goal, change. We're so glad you're here.
So we're gonna do our ritual, and what we like to do is take a deep breath in and exhale. And we're gonna start off with our intention words. We're gonna go around with our intention word. Today, my intention word is positivity.
My intention word is fun.
My intention word is connection.
My intention word is engaged.
All right, now that we got the intention words done and the little breathing in out session going, today's discussion is going to be mental health and relationships. You got me, Tanish, Taisha. I'm sorry.
Everybody,
Tashina,
We're
Tashina.
just gonna start
Yeah,
over.
my bad.
Oh my
On
goodness.
the notes. Yeah.
It's Tashina. That shit got me.
It's okay.
My bad.
Jordan, let it roll. Let's roll with it.
Let it roll, let it roll, let it roll, let
Let's
it
let it
roll.
roll.
It's
It's
fine.
okay.
It's fine. It's only a few minutes. It's only not even a full minute of blurbiness. It's okay. This is what we're all about. Just basically being authentic selves, and we're
Yes.
people. We make mistakes, and so we're not gonna edit this and just pretend like we don't make mistakes. No, there's some bumps and curves along the way. So once again, I'm Mike. This is next to me is Tashina. We got Jen and we got Jordan, and today, like I said, we're gonna be talking about mental health and relationships.
Yes.
So that is what's going on. So my thing is this: when it comes to relationships, how do you go about breaking down that wall of understanding and comfortability to say that I am straight, but however, though I do have some mental health issues regarding with family, work, whatever that may be, before
Right.
taking that leap to saying, all right, I'm your girlfriend, you're my boyfriend, that kind of thing. So how do you go about that?
It's definitely hard, especially in the culture that we live in today, because for so long, mental health was seen as a negative thing. So if you had mental health concerns, it was this automatic assumption that there is something seriously wrong with you. You were not right with whatever. There wasn't that leniency. There wasn't that sense of, okay, let's talk it out or let's work through it. It was just like, oh, you belong somewhere else with somebody else, time or space or energy for that. But I think as more people become aware, and as more people not just becoming aware of other people's, but themselves, I feel like everybody is starting to recognize that mental health is normal. I don't think there's any one person in the world that can say I am completely 1,000% okay. I don't have a single mental health concern whatsoever. My life is perfect. Like, it's just not realistic. There's always something, whether it's stress, whether it's anxiety, whether it's anger, whether it's past traumas, whether it's family issues. Everybody has something, and I think as we become more aware of that in ourselves, we're able to hold that space, have that compassion for other people.
I really like the way you said that, Jordan, because what popped into my head was like something similar. Like, if we can just think about a continuum, like we all exist somewhere in that continuum and we move, right? Like, anxiety is something that happens to everybody, and sometimes it impacts your functioning, and sometimes it's more frequent and severe, and sometimes it's not. I can move over that continuum, and if we try to get out of that little box of what's a mental health disorder, and we look at, like, we all have the feelings like you were saying, and we're just on that continuum, and here's when it impacts me or how it impacts me.
Right.
Then we can just talk about it. Like, we're all bringing stuff. It's that permission to, like, take it out of that little box where I am a person with a mental health disorder. I'm a human being.
Right.
And emotions, and sometimes those emotions get in my way, and sometimes those emotions might be about family or trauma or stress, like you said. They come from different places, and my significant other might have a completely different set of emotions and where they came from. But if we can just be like, look, the expectation isn't that you don't have them, right? Because it's about that expectation. The expectation is we all have them, and we're all making from. So what do you need, and how does that show up? And I just feel like it's in this box now, like mental health, and it does us a great disservice.
Right.
Right. I feel similar to that. I feel that yes, we have came pretty far, but I think we still have work to do as far as mental health is concerned. Because I feel like the main source of mental health is not being able to be vulnerable when you're going through things. Like if you can't be vulnerable around your friends, family, loved ones, when you experience a trauma or even a coworker at work or any of those scenarios, you just become closed off. You start thinking about depression. You get to this place of feeling unsafe. Um, in those type of scenarios, it's hard for you to communicate about what you're feeling or what the emotions are. I do also agree with you, Jordan, that we've been able to talk about these things lately. We just haven't figured out a way to make it okay on a daily basis in certain scenarios, in certain situations, because I feel like sometimes in certain family members, even though someone may have passed away, we all grieve differently. We all take in that grieving in another way. Some of us walk around like we're fine, but we're dying inside. Some of us also, as soon as that happened, don't know how to cope with life, especially if you watch that person just go through a horrible experience while they were alive and they passed away, or even someone was taken away from you in such a horrible, dramatic situation. It's something that I experienced in my own home. My sister-in-law was killed really tragically, and my wife just hasn't been the same ever since. And so I just create a space for her when it's time for her to vent or express herself. But at the same time, I still know she's in pain. I still know she hasn't gotten over it. I know that there's a 3-year anniversary coming up, and I'm always just bracing myself for every moment. And so you just get to that point where, you realize that people are going through these things and you just try to be there for them. And then on the other side of that, how do I cope, or how do I help, and how do I make sure that my mental health is still there, because it still affects me too. It's still a family member of mine that treated me like, family. So I think, all of that in a nutshell, like experiencing that with someone, just feeling their pain, feeling their emotions, and still making sure you don't push them over the edge. Just creating that comfort space so they can talk about it when they're ready to talk about it. Grieving is a hard thing, and we've all kind of experienced this grieving thing in some aspect, especially during COVID, when the world has not been the same ever since, and it won't be for a while. So, I think this conversation is needed so people can understand and know that things are happening in mental health relationships. And it's just up to us to have this uncomfortable conversation and let people know that it's okay to express yourself during this time.
Right. And go ahead.
No, I mean, all great topics, and I mean not topics, all great suggestions and outlets on it. And with you guys all being in relationships, those things do play a big role into it. And then for me being single, it's like, as like you said, it's more of a normalcy for us to talk about that mental health is an issue right now, for us to bring that into the forefront. Um, the issue is pretty much at what stage of dating do you bring this up, or what stage of dating before you're like trying to make things official? Because so far, if you think about it, we've all been doing it without having this conversation. So trying to move forward into a relationship with someone and basically having that discussion about mental health, trying to get someone to basically come to the terms of actually talking about it before they can actually make a full on commitment. Because before, you know, back in the days, the commitment standards were, oh, not having sex till before marriage, or this, that, and the third, and everybody pretty much took what they wanted from those whole relationships. Uh, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? I guess before they start a relationship, this is what they need before they can proceed to go further. So it's like I like how does a person basically at what point in time when meeting someone do you think it should be a good time to talk about mental health before, if you're dating somebody for 3 months, 2 weeks, what have you? So is it like 3 months you feel like it, or is it just something that you should say, hey, we're getting to that point and we haven't really discussed anything in regards to mental health. How do we go about it? Because I know just trying to talk to people about getting properly tested before they do anything is an issue,
Right.
and everybody gets offended assuming that you're thinking they're dirty or they're unclean. That's not the case. You're just basically wanting to find out what's going on. So when's a good time to pretty much ask that question into finding out?
Can I ask you a question? Because what I
Hmm.
think was like, I was thinking about the relationships I've been in and when it should have happened or when it didn't happen. It's always easy to look back and be like, oh, I should have done it this time or that time. But like, is both people like, when do I need to know what is happening in the relationship? What are the conditions that make me ready or know, like, if I keep going further, it's going to get harder, or I have this feeling
Right.
inside myself that like there's things I know I should be saying right now because otherwise I feel like I'm proceeding and there's not honesty. Like, if I'm throwing it on the table, for me, I'm not throwing it on the table in the beginning. I need to know, is there a connection? Do I trust you? Am I going to, there comes a point where I start to feel uncomfortable with the things I haven't said to you. And it's just like sitting there and it becomes a thing where, I feel like there's a part of myself that I haven't showed you yet. And I don't know if that's the same in each relationship or with each person, but I'm wondering like what that has to feel like for you or when that happens for each of you. Because I think it's different too. I don't know.
Right. For
For
me
me, what I've
personally,
been. Oh no, go ahead, Jordan.
there's a delay. So if I cut somebody off, just say something and eventually I'll hear it. But like for my husband, when we started dating, it was probably 2 or 3 months into us dating that we sat down and we had that conversation. And for me, it was really when I started to notice getting serious. And before it gets more serious, I need to say these things and know for sure if you're riding it out with me or if we just need to move on and go our separate ways. For me, it was an easy conversation to have because it was just like, I am not going to invest any more feelings if you're not ready to, carry them. If that's so, let's sit down and have this conversation. And I'm just gonna lay it all out on the table, And that's really what I did. It was just like this. I'm working on fixing it, but this, so you can either take it or you can leave it. And for him, he was just like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm in it. Let's go. It was unexpected, but let's do this. So I think it can be really scary, and I think just like with the whole, getting tested before. Oh yeah, I think it's just like getting tested and all those other conversations that you have. It's scary to have those conversations because it's scary to be vulnerable. But the reality is, I would rather have that conversation in the beginning and let you hurt my feelings before I didn't have any more feelings than wait until we're about to get married. Hey, I'm in that case. Oh, by the way, I got some trauma. Oh, by the way, I'm on this, it's just easier for me in the beginning to get it all out there because I don't as much, whereas people might not feel the same way. So that was just my experience.
Yeah. So for me, I was running away from emotions when I got in a relationship. Just because I didn't quite bottle up where we had to express them.
Yeah.
And my wife, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, was very open with communication, like could talk about anything because she came from the type of environment where they talked about things often. And so for me in the beginning, I was the one that was more kind of quiet and didn't communicate about emotions until I had a traumatic experience and I broke down. And at that moment, when you're in it, you're just breaking down. So there's nothing else you have but vulnerability with the person that you're with. And she was very confident at the time, so it made me feel safe. But I had to go through something in order for me to start to express those things to her. It was hard in the beginning. Like I said, I wasn't really good at communicating. I was probably the worst at it because I didn't even understand my emotions until I became an adult from just my background of growing up in a household where you couldn't express yourself. Like it was just do what you're supposed to do. Don't cry, don't speak, or don't do anything unless I tell you to. So coming from that environment was really difficult. So when I did get into relationships, um, I was very standoffish with my feelings. Like some people didn't even know that I didn't like them at the time, just because I was so good at keeping my emotions inside. And so when I did get in this relationship where it required me to communicate, then I was more open to it. Then I was more upfront with how I was feeling. I even had moments of processing what I was feeling at the moment just from talking it out with my wife. Like we would have these conversations like, okay, where are you? I noticed that you're not talking, so where are you today? What is the things you're going through? And so I think that was the balance that helped us through. And then I became the better communicator than her, and that's another long story. But anyway, it just happens that way sometimes, you know.
All right, we got Christy who came in.
Hey, Christy.
Christy, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts about mental health and relationships. One being that it's not talked about enough, and it really comes down to what your partner is willing to support. I think because if you're having a breakdown and your partner is unable to meet your needs or see or hear your needs as it pertains to mental health, then it's really kind of hard to be able to rely on them and to trust in them and to, really connect through intimacy if you know that you feel like a burden at the end of the day. I think it all comes down to the type of partner, you're choosing, and if they're empathetic, if they can relate to mental health, if they even value that, because I know a lot of people are still slow to recognizing mental health as an actual disease and an actual something that really truly plagues people deeply. But I'm all open for the conversations to be had in daily relationship kind of scenarios, and that could be not even just romantic relationships, just friendships, sibling relationships, but just all types of things.
I think it's, yeah. I mean, I was feeling you, Tashina. I came real comfortable with I've done a lot of work, right? Being vulnerable and my language is feelings. Like I do that and that's okay. And my husband is not that way, and he is not that way. He definitely got the messages that was not okay. You just do what you're supposed to do, suck it up. And then he went and joined the military and, that got extra reinforced and,
Yeah.
and so it was real scary. But I I was at a point in my life where I had made this commitment to just being authentic and being vulnerable. And I didn't dump it. I didn't turn the tap on full blast, first date, second date, but I think like Jordan said earlier, for me, like I got to a place where I was just like, look, like it's got to be all of me, or it's got to be like I need to know now, because if you can't handle that, and it did scare him, and I watched him get scared, and it scared me, you know, and it made me. I had to be careful that it didn't undo the work I had done to be okay with myself, because I found myself sitting down writing like this manifesto, right, about what I was going to say, and I was like, who is this for? Is this really for him, or is this for me? Like. And I, like in that moment, realized it was for me. Like I had to remind myself that I accepted all these parts of myself, because he wasn't not accepting them, but he wasn't understanding them. And then I had a decision, like, you know, he let it be known that he would support me, you know, and that he was there, and that was safe. But it was also like he didn't even know what he didn't know, and so I had to decide, could I receive that? And we still struggle with it. We just spent a weekend at a marriage retreat, and it was sponsored by his like unit in the military, right? So, I mean, the good thing was it was geared to a whole bunch of people like my husband who like that's not their norm, that's not their language, it's not. So that helps me, but it's something we struggle with, right? He didn't have that language, and that, you know, and I have to be really careful to stay okay with myself and my emotions inside of that thing, even now. You know.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you get to this place of how can I communicate with someone that just doesn't know? And then you also do this thing to yourself. Like, what is it that is in me that I can't help this person communicate better with me? You do these things in your mind sometimes. This dance with yourself in your mind is, okay, how far can I go with this conversation without pushing this person over the edge? How far can I go at this scenario or this situation without me going over the edge as well? Because you got limitations too. And without, you know, compromising your own mental health or your own emotions and trying to put so much energy into helping another person reach that level of clarity in your relationship. I think that's difficult, but like you said, when you put in the work, because then you get to a place of like, how can I fault somebody for not knowing? Like, how can I really fault them? And they just don't know. They just never been taught. They've never been. And then sometimes it's not even your place as the wife or the spouse to be the person to teach them. And that's the hard part sometimes, is sometimes things you can't even teach your spouse about that in that moment. It's things they sometimes got to learn on their own, or sometimes they pick it up from somewhere else. And I think that's a hard part. And that's what creates some type of dynamic when you two can trust each other enough to allow the other person to just grow at their own pace and still be supportive.
I'm not gonna lie, Tashina, that's well said, well put. Because I was thinking the same thing, where it's like you want to be with that person, but then you understand they got let's say mental health growing,
Yeah.
and you can't put in that effort for every, like you can't do it for them, because like that is something that, one, they have to be ready and understanding that it is a problem that needs to be addressed and fixed. And then two, it's okay to say it's above my pay grade. Let's go. Let me help you find somebody to help you. And and that is the thing for with me being single for the longest, and this took me a while to get to that point where I always tell people my personality, my story, me myself when dating with me, it's like a deck of cards. I'm gonna lay the cards out for you and beforehand, so ain't nobody's time being wasted. So you gonna get the unfiltered, the rawness of me, because that's what I want from you, and so I'm gonna give you what I want. But then over time, I'm seeing it as like not everybody's walking like that. Everybody's doing that representative when during the interview process, where everybody and people will keep this on for like months. And some people even keep on that interview mentality behavior like for even years. And I was asking myself, why do people do this? And then it dawned on me when I'm in another Facebook group where it's a relation it's called talk relationship talk, and hearing people and hearing people, their stories and stuff like that, and it's just like, wow. So like people are finally, like probably a year, 2, 3, whatever, finally slowly peeling back the onion of the person they are with the people they married. And to me, that is frightening. It's like, because I'm not gonna lie, and I hate to say it. I tell people this. Well, I don't hate to say it. I'm very happy in saying this. I'm like, I will cut you off at any given point in time if I find out if I'm getting into something I was not told to up front. Because it's like, yo, I need a disclaimer. And so when I would talk to people, I'm like, so what is your disclaimer? If you came with a disclaimer, what would that be? Just to kind of make it easier for people to, hey, let it out a little bit, and so they can explain. So it's like we all have a disclaimer. It's okay to put that up front. And people, we get into that whole thing. Don't ask, don't tell. So, and that's wrong. But at the same point in time, that's also a good policy.
Yeah.
But when it comes to dating and mental health and things like that, I believe, especially when it comes into dating or in a relationship with people, it's best to ask all the right questions, and it's best to give answers, especially if you feel like you're investing in people. You need to basically be 100% yourself. And we're not talking about yourself where you're this person at work and you're this person with your family. The person that you're going to probably spend the rest of your life with needs to know all aspects of you, and they need to be okay with that, and they need to be given the opportunity to accept those about you, and they need to understand if they're able to handle that or not. And if they are not able to handle it, that's okay. That's just where they're not able to do. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you as an individual. And I think that's where a lot of people get that scarcity vibe, where they don't want to feel like they're being judged, or they feel like they're not good enough, or everybody wants to portray a role to maintain a certain sense of mental calmness. And that's where it's kind of like a double-edged sword, where rejection is a big part of playing with people's emotions. And like dating so many people, it's like understanding everybody differently. But then me being myself every single time with everybody, some people receive it very differently. One girl actually thought I was trying to get married in 2 weeks. Little did she know, that's not my cup of tea.
So, Mike, I like how you put that, but there's also these things that come up when you guys or people are together that they didn't know that they were aware of. And that's the part I think that you just may kind of be missing out on a little bit, because people sometimes don't know that they're going to react a certain type of way, or they don't even know that they have this thing, or they believe that they've healed themselves from that, and then another experience happened and it's come up. So they're not really kind of sure on, wow, it's happening again. I didn't realize this is a part of me. So when I got with you, I thought I was strong. I thought I had all my ish together. I thought I was in this great place. But then I got with you and something happened and it set a trigger, or it's a new trigger now that I'm just not quite aware of. And so I think, I kind of disagree with you a little bit on the part where you put all your cards on the table, because I know we're all like evolving and changing every single day. I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. Shoot, I'm not even the same person I was 2 weeks ago. So I'm just saying that you just be a little more, in your next venture, just be a little more open-minded to the other person, because sometimes they don't know that they're going to experience that. I mean, that's just my 2 cents as far as like being married, because stuff come up after the fact.
But see, I get that, but like you said, after being married, but then at the same point in time, that's when you really, like you said, like I said, like in my mind of being like a spiritual thing when it comes in a relationship, the person is, like I said, they're either going to accept it or not accept it. But there's nothing wrong with them not accepting it, because that's just them saying, I'm not able as an individual to help you or support you and mentally. And it doesn't mean that, just because that took place that time doesn't mean, like, who knows what the future may have for you. There's no such thing as, I will never date that person again. I mean, for some people there is, but
I was about to say
it's okay to say that I can't. I'm not able to help you in that area. This is above my pay grade. I'm gonna back out. But there's nothing wrong with that. But people need to understand when a person backs out, it's literally when they say it's me, not you, it's really them,
Yeah.
not you. Because it's like I want to help. Like I've dated women where it's like your emotional baggage is strong, and I want to be there for you as a friend. However, I don't think you're in the right state of mind to be in a relationship with
Right.
anybody, let alone with somebody like myself. But if you need a friend, I can be that for you and help you along the way. And that much I have done in the past and currently in the present, where I'm there for you as a friend, but I can't be there with you as a relationship because where I'm at right about now, you're not there, and that's fine. That's fine. Who knows what 5 or 10 years may bring? We may run into each other again, and you're at the right space. I'm at the right space. Hey, that's the universe saying, hey, let's give this a shot. But as of right now, I feel like, you know, that's what I told the person. I was like, as of right now, I feel like you as an individual, you need time to yourself. You need time to understand yourself, what you want, because that the mental health aspect is we're getting into relationships with people and we're not like you're not I'm not saying you're supposed to come to them already built up, but
Right.
you're supposed to be able to be comfortable knowing that you have issues and expressing those things with those people. We're not perfect, and a person is either going to accept you for that or not. And if they don't, it's nothing bad about them not accepting it. That's just them being strong enough to know that they can't handle it. I want to play basketball. I'm 5'5". That is not going to happen. But I'm okay with expressing that. Like when any of my friends or families like, "Yo, let's play ball," I look around. I'm like, "You 5'9", you 5'6". I'm not doing this. It's not the world for me. It's not the world for me. I'm not doing this because I know that I want to play, but you gonna mess up my whole self-esteem when you dunk on me, and I'm not gonna feel that way. I'm not gonna feel good. You're not gonna ruin my whole day. I'm not having that. And so, to me, that's where the whole thing comes into play. Like you got to understand that. Like people have to understand that it's okay to say that your relationship or your mental health like I don't want to use the word baggage because baggage has basically been used as in a negative light, not in a positive, but your mental health structure isn't as strong for the both of us to basically withstand on. So individually you probably need to try to build that yourself, and I would be more than happy to be their sideline to give you some gorilla glue if you need it,
Right.
and give you some Gatorade every now and again. But as far as like being in there with you doing the building process, that is not for me.
Yeah.
And there's some people where I have met where I felt like, with the building process, I like you and I like you a lot, and I see there's a building process going on, but I still want to be a part of that building. I still want to help and sit back and be like, wow, you did a lot, but I also helped out too. This is nice. But it's that. But we gotta be comfortable enough with it's like in a sense accepting rejection, and not just of the body but also of the spiritual mind, of the spirit and mind. And I think a lot of people tend to like get very angry about that, get hurt and judged by it. And it's also like it's like we've said, it's a new norm accepting mental health. So people's approach to it is not going to be one of the best, because I once had a female. I expressed myself to her, like my family background and how things are, and she was a spiritual she was a church going person, and her response is, "Oh, you got demons." I was like, "Excuse me." She's like, you're she was like, "You're spiritually on, like, your soul and your spirit is just not clean. You need." I'm like, oh,
Oh,
now Now
judgment.
her approach to that like stung me, and she thought about it, and she thought about it and she tried to fix it, and she was like, "I can't see myself submitting myself to somebody like you because of how you of how you are as a person right now." And I was just like, huh. Choices of words could have been done differently, but so in that situation, one, she said what she said, and then she tried to clean it up later. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not feeling this. This ain't for me. And when she said what she said, I accepted it. When I said I'm not feeling it because you judge me and the way I mean, I'm hurt, but you have the right to feel that way, and you're expressing it in another way. But I'm not gonna stick around with that. I'm sorry. That's just gonna replay in my mind. So I don't think this is gonna work out. It didn't work out, my separation speech didn't stick through. I was getting calls and texts if you ain't shit, this, that, and the third. You're such a dog, and I'm like, I just told you I wasn't.
Because she felt rejected.
Yeah, I was just like, but you just like I just told you I'm not feeling it anymore because you know this like what you just said to me. I can't let that go, even though you're right. I'm working on it, but the way you just shot me, I don't think I can recover from that. So it's okay.
Mm.
And like maybe in the future, maybe something to go on. And she was like, nah, it's either gonna work out now or not at all. Well, then we're not gonna do this at all. And so and it was hard. And it's like it's like it's the delivery approach, but then I'm a firm believer what was said at the time is the universe telling me either you like if I accept it, I accept it, but now I gotta act accordingly, knowing that this is how this person is. But let me express my feelings to them and let them know how I felt about it. But if I continue to accept it, just that's me accepting it. But if I choose not to, that's just how I'm feeling at that time within the universe. Doesn't mean there's no chance for that person in the future, but I had to accept her her criticism on me, and it really did sting a lot. I think about it today, and it still kind of hurts. But it was one of those things where I like the delivery aspect for a lot of people is different, and it's gonna be hard. But then at the same point in time, some people can, some people can't. But that's just another way of filtering out who's the right person for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I think the mental health aspect in relationships is always hard. You talked about, I think in our last podcast, you talked about, having, cards in a deck, but it's not quite that. You can't quite use that metaphor because for a lot of people, they're not even sure what cards they're holding. Like they don't even understand the depth of what they have going on until something happens and it clicks and it's like, oh, I'm in this real deep. Like I remember when after my first marriage ended, I dated this guy and he had all kinds of mental health stuff going on that I was completely unaware of until I was. And it was like a whoa, oh my goodness, how did I miss all of this stuff? Because he was just so used to it. He was so used to holding it all together, wearing this straight face that he continued to do it throughout the first year of our relationship, legit year of our relationship, held it together. And then it was like all of a sudden something triggered him and it all started falling apart. Like he would call me at crazy hours of the night, drunk driving, and he couldn't remember how he got to where he was, or like call me from the police station because he got a DUI. Like it was literally like all of a sudden all of this crazy stuff started happening. And I was just like, what is going on? And he couldn't even tell me. He couldn't even tell me the beginning of what was happening. He was just like, I don't know. I just woke up and I was here. I took one drink and next thing I know I was here. It was always the same thing. I don't know. I don't know how all of this stuff started happening. I don't know how I got here. I don't know how to fix it. I just don't know. And it was in that situation. It's like, what if he would have told me this in the beginning, that a year from now I would be getting crazy phone calls at all hours of the night? Would I have jumped into this relationship? No, probably not. Probably not. But he couldn't have even told me, even if he wanted to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, I haven't.
And it's like,
go ahead, Jordan.
go ahead. Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just saying, because you don't, like, they bring you what they think is their honest truth. And I have an ex-husband like that. And it was like 2 weeks before, we had a baby together. We were 2 weeks from our wedding. And I come home and there are police at my house and he's been, like drunk shoplifting somewhere. And I just did not know what was going, And you're like, well, shit, I didn't sign up for this, but we're in this now. We're like, year and a half into this, we have a brand new baby, whatever. And so then there you are, right? And I know in that moment, like I legit had like 2 weeks before our wedding. And it was like, there's all this pressure, too, like from my parents saying, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And, you want to talk to the minister at our church. But like inside of me, it was like, well, damn, I had this newborn too. Like I wasn't in my right space. Like I had this teenager and this newborn. And it's like, sometimes you get into space too, where I couldn't sort it. I just had to go through with it. I was like, well, what am I going to do? This thing I committed to. And I used to think all the time, like once things kind of fell apart, because, then we were on a roller coaster of mental health and addiction for like a couple of years, and I had a teenager and a baby and a teenager and a toddler. And I was like, oh my God, what is wrong with you, Jen? Like, why did you do that in that moment when you found out, you know? But I think also, yeah, I've matured, I've done my work, I've learned to value myself more now, and what I accept and don't accept is different. And also, like, sometimes you can't pry apart the good and the bad. Like, it gets back to spirituality for me. Like, at some point that person was put in my life, and like, yeah, I had a choice in that moment, and I could have made a different choice, but maybe I wasn't meant to, maybe I needed to walk the road that I walked, because, that was some of the hardest times of my life. But I legit did not learn to take care of myself until that relationship, like, for real, not just say self-care, like legitimately, till my husband was in the hospital, in rehab. I had a baby and a teenager, and was losing my stuff and having panic attacks. And it was that point that I finally, like, really learned how to be vulnerable, really learned to let go of my perfectionism, crawled into therapy and Al-Anon. And so like, if I hadn't done those things, I would not be transformed in the way I am now. And so, I mean, I don't recommend that path, but you never know what you're signing up for sometimes.
Right.
All the questions, all the conversations. Because if the person doesn't know where they are, the person is like, please love me. I don't want to show you this thing because I'm so,
Right.
they're unaware, or, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I understand you. There was a lot of influences around you that you couldn't even be in control of your own emotions at that particular time. I've experienced with, some family members, and they put all this pressure on you when they're having their issues or their concerns, and you just kind of really want to be there for them in their time of need, and you forget just personally about your own physical self.
Yeah.
That has happened to me to the point that I had a nervous breakdown when everyone just putting all this pressure on me, and I just thought I'm just supposed to be there and do what they want me to do, and not knowing that I had a right to just say no, that I had a right to just disconnect myself from their stuff. I just wasn't even aware of that. That led to that breakdown, that led me to this place of just not understanding what was going on, just because I wasn't taking care of myself. And then I didn't even know that it was okay to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
just was ready to just put everybody else's stuff ahead of mine and stuff like that. And you get to this place, there's so much pressure up on you. There's nowhere else for that to go but to explode. So it's not the same situation, but it's very similar to what I felt when everyone was putting their stuff on me, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to handle. And instead of me saying, no, I can't, or no, it's not the time, I just kept on going, allowing it to happen, and not paying attention to my body, my mind, or my spirit at that particular time. But like you said, I've done the work. I've been through the self-care stuff and taking care of myself and figuring that out and understanding now, to the point where I can have this open conversation, because at first I couldn't even express that out loud, that I had a nervous breakdown. But I've learned and grew from that, and I understand where I was then, and I know where I am now. I've even shared that in my relationship. It took me a while to say those things, but I did. That was open-ended conversation, and was embraced. And I just feel blessed to be able to have someone to embrace that, because it took me a long time to even admit that to anyone out loud, just because I was ashamed, I was embarrassed. But at the same time, I'm not embarrassed about that right now, because I understand that. I knew what I was experiencing then, and I knew how to deal with it, and I know my limitations now. And I understand when I can't, that I can't, and I know how to say no. Like, I love to say no now. Like, that's probably to a lot of people, because I've learned my boundaries. Even with my relationship, I've learned my boundaries. And so you just gotta keep going with it, and just having faith in yourself and trusting yourself in those scenarios and situations, and not get to that place or beating yourself up about not being able to take care of other people's stuff.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. I think, in terms of mental health and relationships, it really is a very fine line. There's a very fine balance between when do I tell, when do I keep it to myself, how much do I tell?
Right.
Just because, like Mike mentioned, that there's that, it's not even the fear of rejection, but it's the fear of judgment on top of that. Now, for people to just say, no, it's too much, I'm not willing to jump in, that's one thing. But to be like, no, it's too much, there's something wrong with you, and pile on all these negative things to what you're already feeling, I think that's the scariest part of mental health and relationships, because there's so much judgment around the topic of mental health.
Yeah.
It's just mind blowing. Um, and I really hope that as a people we can get to a place where mental health, like I said, becomes a norm. In the first couple of dates, you're talking about mental health, and it doesn't have to be a deep dive into every negative thing that's ever happened in your past, but just a general, yeah, these are some big picture things that I struggle with. And, I'm looking for somebody who can, ride these waves with me, or I'm looking for somebody just to hold space while I'm in these waves, or whatever it is, like being aware of our own mental health so that we can tell other people, this is what I need from you when I'm in these moments. I feel like if we could get to that place, it would make the dating process so much easier, or the relationship process so much easier. Just being open and honest.
Yes, I definitely agree. But I also notice how we're kind of creating this space like as we go, because our past generations have literally no idea what we're talking about. I would love nothing more than to go to my mom and ask her how I can maneuver in my marriage. I'm a new millennial married woman. We've only been married for 2 years, and now we're starting to see some of that stuff boil up with our mentals, and we have no support on how to move forward, because I had a conversation with mom, like asking her, like, what do you do when you don't feel well enough to show up for your husband and show up for yourself and show up for your child? She was like, oh, you just go in the bathroom and cry. Don't let anyone hear you. Turn the water on. I did that a lot. And I was like, you poor woman. I like that broke my heart, but it also was like, that's not how I would like, where's the resource, where's the guidance? Oh, we're making it up by ourselves. And I think that's why these talks are more important than people really truly understand, because our elders have no concept of what we're talking about.
Right. Because there was no space for mental health at that time. You had to be strong.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what you are going through. You had to put on your brave face and keep moving forward. And, to bring race into it, especially as a people, there is no space for mental health weakness, quote unquote. You always have to keep it together. You always have to be strong, and just keep pushing forward. I was talking to my husband about this the other day. We were talking about how past generations, every time there's issues in marriage in this present generation, past generations like, well, in my generation, we stayed married for 50 years and we were always in marriage, meant something, but it was different. A lot of times the women, at least in my family experiences, they stayed married because they didn't have any other options. They were struggling physically, mentally, whatever, but there was nowhere else for them to go, whether it was because of financially, or because they had a plethora of children, or because they didn't have anybody else, whatever it was. Marriage was what it was because there was no other option. You physically could not do anything else. And in terms of mental health, it still wasn't healthy. They were still struggling with addiction and trauma and all kinds of things. And the solution was to just shove it down and put on this strong face and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And now,
Yo.
and now we're trying to break down that strong face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, Jordan. You know me, I've done a lot of different jobs over the years, and so I make friends that way. So if you see my Facebook, and it seems like I got a big following. These are people met through school, multiple different jobs, grocery stores, and things like that. And so,
Mhm.
so it's funny that you say that about back in the day, their generation. I was working with this lovely lady. Her name was Helen, and I loved Helen. She was so sweet. And like me, once I'm comfortable with people, I start talking. Whether I'm comfortable or not, I just start talking. So I was talking about being single and like dating, and she was like, "Don't worry about getting married. Just enjoy yourself. If I could do it all over again, I wouldn't." Helen was married to her husband for 50 years. Only 5 of those years were good out of the 50. She
Yeah.
said 5 out of 50. I was like, "Excuse me?" Well, she said, "Yeah, because we,
That was the norm.
and that was the norm." And it was like, and she was like, he was just so abusive, and he was just so unkept, and we had children together, and this, that, and the third, and that shit scared the shit out of me. And like, even going into today's dating, and you find some people that says in the old days was better. I'm like, man, you better pick and choose what you mean by the old days, because in the old
Right.
days you were barefoot and pregnant and you had no say. So pick and choose
Mhm.
now. Let's be honest.
Right.
But it was just like people get into that, like they hear people talk about their marriages from back in the day, and then they see people try to emulate that. I'm like, nah, that was not healthy. That was
Yeah.
not healthy for your soul whatsoever. Like it helped, and I think of Helen all the time. She was so sweet, and she was just like, and the things she told me, I was just like, oh my God. And you
Yeah.
stayed, and you
Yeah.
didn't, and it was like, and like it's always a red flag to me. Like for some reason, whenever I hear somebody say my husband doesn't want me to work, run. He wants to control you. Run. Because it's like he doesn't want you to make your own money. So when you're ready to leave him, you literally can't. Because back then that's what that was. Helen would tell me,
Yeah.
it's like they would ask and they'd be like, I'm gonna leave. He's gonna be like, where you going? You have no money. What are you gonna do?
Right.
And I was like,
Right.
Right.
dang. And it dawned on me when they said that, and I was just like, oh my God, that is so messed up. And people are like, back in the day, men used to pay for everything, and I was like, nah, they didn't pay for everything because they liked it. They paid for everything because that was a control factor. Because they know
Mm.
you ain't gonna leave, whether they cheat. Helen used to get cheated on like it was
Oh
nothing,
my gosh.
and I was
Yes.
just like, and he would be verbally abusive, and I was like, he would hit you or be verbally to you. I'm like, you're so sweet, and I was just like, oh my God, Helen. When I think she finally got, I think she started dating, and it took for him to die for her to be free, and I was just like,
That
oh
sounds
my.
exactly like my mother.
It took him to
Oh my
die
gosh.
in order for her to be free. And I was just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, that makes no sense. And I was just, to me being, to her, me being young, she's like, oh, well, your generation is different. You're young. And I was just like, yeah, but, and, and so I live vicariously to other people. And to me, I just never thought that was okay. Whenever a female says she wants to be a stay-at-home mom, I'm like, man, that comes with a consequence. Don't play that role unless you sit down at the table and have a mutual conversation with that person
Right.
on what the rules and regulations of how this is going to play out, because you need to break that down. This quote unquote, oh, it goes without saying. We should never ever assume it goes without saying. We need details. We need details, and you need to basically have that conversation with people. And I just
Yeah.
think about that with all the women I come in contact with, especially in my especially in the Facebook group chat, where there's people getting married to people, and I'm just like, but you knew, you know what? Perfect example, that Derek Jackson guy,
Yeah.
where he said, where she said, the wife is like, he played on my religion, where he asked me to forgive him because God wanted me to forgive him. And so he cheated on you not once but twice, but multiple times, and you
Yeah.
used the religion, and he used your religion to keep you hostage in a marriage that he clearly himself was not happy, or at least satisfied with, to a certain degree. But
Right.
it was these kind of things where I'm just like, it was just like, it's scary. But then I get the odd looks, or I get that I'm weird or I'm different, when I go out the, like, I'm not holding back anything. It's a firing squad of questions and answers, and me trying to find out if I'm able to handle if I'm able to handle your mental issues and your strength, and are you able to handle mine? Because once again, I am not trying to be that guy 50 years down the line, like, yeah, I'm with her because I don't want to be alone. and I can't stand her. So, and it was like it's crazy because I hear people that have been married for 15 years. I'm like, would you ever do it again? Nope, not even a little bit. Can't stand it. I was just like, what? Because it's like to me, it's like it's like it's a great thing where you get to bond with somebody and you find like my idea of it is like obviously I'm not in it, but my idea of the whole marriage thing and the whole relationship thing, be with somebody that's literally like your best friend. You're never tired of them. You're never bored. And you know what? I thought it, but then it's like I get tired of my family, but you know what I'm saying? I still love my family. But these are people that's just like, man, if they could die right now, I'd be happy. I was like, holy shit. And it was just, it's like it was a shocker to see and hear men and women alike, especially for women that were like in the 40s and 50s and all that crap. But I'm just like, I was like, I hate men. I hate men for a hot minute. I was like, men suck. We're not nice. Chivalry is dead to a certain degree because
Oh.
chivalry comes with a cost. And it's like, oh, can I get your phone number? Just because you open the door, sir? Literally? Okay. That's not how it's played, but whatever. And it's just like the discussion pieces that people left unattended prior to getting into relationships shouldn't be a thing. It should be a dead and buried thing, not a thing of normalcy. And I feel like with me being in the single market and dating, it's like a lot of people are kind of sort of looking for that where I'm just like, nah, I'm asking questions. And they're like, why are you asking so much questions? I'm like, when they say that to me, I'm like, okay, this is not going to go anywhere because how else do you get to know somebody? Oh, you just go through the motions. I'm like, yeah, I'm going through the motions. And in 5 years down the line, I'm gonna still go through the motions while I'm still asking these questions. Like, I think everybody's gotten to the point of mental health is not an issue to talk about, but then accepting, oh, whether you're with a person like I have friends and family that are in a relationship and they're not happy now, but their response is, "Oh well, I've been with them for like 8 years, 9 years." I was like, "But you're not happy." Yeah, but who wants to start all over? What? Oh, God.
Mhm.
I can't. I can't. I can't. I literally had a nurse friend who's like her husband doesn't work and she pays all the bills and he does nothing. She still comes home, cooks and clean, and I'm like, yeah, you need to say something about that. Well, no, because whenever I do, he gets all emotional and then he starts to cry. I'm like, he needs to do some push-ups. But yeah, you need to have that conversation. And it's just like you're not. But then the crazy thing about the control factor is with her relationship is that he does that, but then she's not allowed to go out with her friends because then he feels abandoned and rejected. I'm like, and to me I'm like he's mentally abusing you. Like he ain't saying it in a mean way, but he's using it in a sympathy factor where it's like she gets off of work, she goes home, she cooks, she cleans, and then she can't have free, like she can't go out with her coworkers, she can't go out with her friends. And I was just like, yeah. And it's like either you knew you were getting into this or did he just spring this on? It was like, well, when his mom died, I was like, okay, so that was a trigger. That's what started it. But then you go on, and it's just like at some point you either need to put your foot down or not at all. But with her, she like being with her upbringing and her culture, she Filipino, where they're extremely submissive, so they just go with the flow. And I'm like, that's nice, but that shit needs to die. Like it needs to die. It does not need to be. That should not be a normal thing in the world. And it's just like hearing these things, and it's just like people ask why you're single. I'm just like, cuz I'm properly vetting my situation before I make the next move. And they're like, oh, you're 38 and you have no children. What's wrong with you? I'm like, cuz I'm smart about my decision. I'm not just gonna have kids with somebody that I may eventually not like. Last thing I want to do is say, I hate your mother. That's the thing I don't want to say. And I don't want
Well,
somebody to be
I
like,
would hope that you would not say that to your children.
exactly, exactly. And I don't want somebody to say, I hate your father about me because, I don't really care if people like me a lot, but mainly the person I'm interested in is the person I impregnate. I would like them to like me for the rest of their days. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But yeah, that was enough of my rant.
Thank you, Mike. This has been a very interesting topic. And as we come to our session's close, I guess we can go around and really express our final thoughts for this session on mental health and relationships. I guess I will start. And it's not really a thought, more so as it is a question. We've talked about all the different experiences that we've had with mental health and relationships, or some of the different experiences that we've had. And it brings up the question of, as a partner, when you're in a relationship with someone, what is your responsibility in terms of your partner's mental health? We've heard some people say just holding space. We've heard some people say, helping them handle their situations or deal with their situations. But really, as a human being in a relationship with another human being, what do we feel like our responsibilities are to that person and their mental health? So just
That
something
is
to
such a
think
good
about.
question.
Go ahead, Kirsty.
Oh, okay, sorry. I wasn't sure if it was like a rhetorical question.
No, you don't have to answer the question. It's just a question that came to mind. So
Okay, well, I'm gonna sit on it then, because it was so beautiful that I'm just gonna marinate in it.
I think that was kind of like just about my final thought too. Like the words for me were about, it's like a thought and a question. And I think the thought is that like I can be okay if I'm taking care of myself and my side of the street. And when I dip onto your side of the street and I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not healthy, and what I do when I'm not healthy is I find myself darting over to your side of the street, telling you what to do and trying to control your thing, So like my responsibility is knowing what I need, taking care of what I need, asking for what I need, and staying on my damn side of the street. And that is a hard thing. Like every day I cross the street all the time, but I think it's those boundaries and that like what I control and what I don't, what's yours and what's mine will help you move through this. And so like, how to do that is the question is like, how do we do that? That's my life question. So, but
thank you.
So, I want to say, I guess my final thought as well. I guess we just have to get to that place of accepting people as they are, where they are at the moment they're at that place. Because what I realize, we all grow at our own speed.
Mm-hmm.
And we all experience things on a daily basis that affect us all differently. And being in a relationship, when you put your expectations of how that person should cope with life on them, then you're basically not accepting them as they are, where they are at that moment. And so I think what my responsibility is in my relationship is allowing that person to grow no matter what that looks like. Even if I don't know who that person is while they're growing, that's not the person that I married, or I don't understand that, and just allow myself to just be patient with that person as they're growing through their experience, because it's their experience and they have their own responsibilities and their own experience. Whether they want to deal or accept them, that's not on me, it's on them. And I just remain in that place, or keep them in that place in my heart that I know is unconditional love, so that I'm able to move on for myself and still be present in my relationship.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
I'll go with my final thoughts of this whole conversation. It's just, this all of this is so new when we're talking about relationships and how they're evolving in consciousness and emotionally and spiritually. So I would just say that doing your best is the best you can do, and you're doing the best you can with the knowledge that you have at this current time, especially with your partner. A lot of marriages have gone through a lot with COVID and all of that tacked on to mental health issues and emotional issues. So just leaning into giving empathy to yourself as a partner, and then giving empathy or receiving empathy or viewing that person from a different lens, an empathetic lens, would be key in trying to maneuver and grow together, as opposed to, shaming, blaming, casting someone who is the victim versus the villain kind of scenario, because that's not growing, that's not expansive. So just keeping an open mind and finding your way. I think that's my final thoughts on the conversation.
Thank you, Kirsty.
My final thoughts, since I did a lot of ranting, if the juice is worth the squeeze, then no. But if it's not, then you know.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
If you didn't know,
all right.
No, because it's like when you're making lemonade and orange juice, sometimes it gets very tasking and cumbersome. But then if it's worth it, because you're gonna get that nice fresh lemonade and that nice fresh orange juice, if you feel like the juice is worth the squeeze, it's okay to put in that effort. But if you feel like it ain't worth the squeeze, it's okay to stop and just buy the gallon.
Yeah. That's a good metaphor.
That is a great metaphor.
Yeah.
It is.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes. Well, thank you all for joining us on another episode of Beyond the Sum of Our Parts. We will see you all on another Wednesday. Have a great have a great week, and we'll talk with you all later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.